Good evening, all. Ira Epstein with your SPDR-ETF stock market wrap-up, and this wrap-up is for Tuesday, the 16th of April, 2024, and we are just looking at now the wrap-up in this evening. So, a mixed day, but we're up tonight in all the stock indices. They're getting a little bit of a bid right now. When we look at TLT, down a lot. Well, did you watch today's conversation that was on TV, and it was on Bloomberg, the full thing, between the Bank of Canada governor, the head of the Bank of Canada, and our Federal Reserve Chair, Powell, as they were questioned back and forth. And the one thing that came out of it, we're higher for longer, and other banks want to go down. It could be the Bank of England, it could be Bank of Canada, it could be the European Central Bank. Other banks are at the point where if they just keep the data coming in as it is for another couple of months, 2 months, whatever it's going to take, they'll probably begin their cutting. We're far away from that. Our data is too strong. Our labor markets are still strong. The American economy just keeps going. Tonight, Ms. Lagarde will be on, I think it's CNBC at 8 p.m. Central Time. And you want to see that interview. You know, the one thing she says, and she says it so beautifully. I mean, she's my favorite speaker as a central banker. Americans like to spend, Europeans like to save. Therefore, our economy is very strong because even if Americans don't have a lot, they keep spending. Whereas Europeans, if they don't have a lot, they might skip a meal. It is different. There's a different psychology at work in these countries. Please remember that. And what she is saying is they're weakening finally. The consumer isn't stepping up to the table. Inflation is dropping. In America, we have a migration issue. New people coming in, making money they haven't made. They have to establish a household. They are getting jobs, and they're spending. That's them. And then the rest of us making our livings. If you want a job in America, you've got it. You know, we have a city, too, where people, every time you go in a store, somebody's outside. I'm homeless. Please help me. My help would be read a paper and get a job. And obviously, some of them aren't mentally well. We know that. Do I give them money? I admit I do, okay? And not every time because you'll go broke in the process, but I admit I do. I'm a softie that way. But I don't like it, and who does? All right. So you look at all this and you try to figure out what do you do one way or the other. The other event is Iran, Hamas, Iran, and Israel. So everything going on right now, Israel was going to hold its third war cabinet meeting, and, you know, the word imminent keeps coming up with a strike. But the allies of Israel have really putting pressure on Israel. Hold back. Let's talk. Let us put sanctions on them. The one sanction that won't happen in the United States because of politics is the sanction that should be put on, but it won't because of politics. And that would be sanctioning the oil that 3 million barrels a day go out of Iran. You cut off the oil, you cut off their ability to fund. Will Joe Biden do it and risk setting up a spike in oil prices right as summer's coming? Gasoline prices probably go through the roof on it. Oil prices go through the roof. Everything that uses with it, energy bills will go up. Of course not. As much as the market yesterday liked to talk about it, I said I don't think he has the guts. And I use that word, the guts to do it, and I don't. So what I think it'll be is some other form of sanctions. Will that appease Israel? I can't answer for Israel. I don't know. As for Hamas and Iran, I mean, if Iran's smart, they'll tell Hamas, you got to accept something. And saying you're going to do 20 prisoners, less than 20 prisoners, after 6 weeks and Israel pulls back, somebody's got to knock some sense. That isn't going to happen. All right? So if you want to get a truce, you got to come to the table with something that gets a truce. On the other hand, I understand their position. Their position is the truce ends. Israel says it's coming after us to kill us. How does that work? I don't have the solutions. By the way, nobody's had them for thousands of years in the Mideast. When we look at Citicorp, continues to fall down. Okay, you know, I was just listening to bankers saying this market's going to be up by the end of the year, double in price. Okay, do you see that? I don't know. Maybe they're right. They could be. I'm looking at a higher high, lower low. I'm just seeing a market that's slipping away. Where's the Bollinger Band in it? you're under it. So if it keeps accelerating, you might drop down here. Now, some of the banks are beating. Goldman did a phenomenal job of beating the market. Schwab's doing actually pretty good too, but this isn't doing that well. And you could see you're oversold. So at any point you can stabilize, but going up dramatically from here, banks aren't sexy. I don't see why. DraftKings. Well, you had yesterday, and this is always important. We had an outside day down, and you went, if you take a look to the 43.20 level, you got to 43.33 to be specific, and oversold. And if you take out the high of an outside day down, it's often a sign that the market is through. It doesn't mean it can't go back there, but it's a good sign that it's spent itself, and that's what happened today. For my money, I don't think there's I think there's other places to be. In UGA, the trend continues up in the gasoline fund, but I'd be a little cautious here. We're still a little bit early for the market to run. We'll see if it can do it, and if it does, terrific. It's certainly bullish, all right? But it is very overbought, not with what I call that locked-in momentum, that embedded reading. Before we get too far in XLF and all the others, tomorrow you get the U.S. Mortgage Bankers Association, and that comes out at 6 a.m. Then we're going to get the petroleum stock estimates at 9:30. None of these are big reports. The bigger report will have an idea what the different regional centers look like, where the central banks are at, in the beige book at 1 o'clock. So that I always look at, like to get a feel for what they're seeing and what they think is going to be happening. But is there a market mover there? There isn't a market mover there. One other thing. I've done a special report tonight, and it's out on the website now, on the Eurocurrency. There's just so much talk of the euro possibly going to parity with the dollar. I figured it's time to do it. So I did trend and chart analysis. Now, let me tell you what I did with this. I went and first I looked at two different types of seasonal charts to see what they're doing. Then I went to price counts. Price counts are something unique to us. Then I give you the commentary with the chart action that I'm seeing based on the weekly charts and the daily charts to get you up there. And I discuss the fundamentals as to why I think the euro is in trouble versus the US dollar. My reports are only up for 3 business days. After that, they're off. So if you'd like to see the report, all you need to do is move your cursor to the top up here. There'll be an icon, or you can go to iraepstein.com under the word research. It's there. If you're a member already, a subscriber, you got the email with the login. You can go into your member login area. It's all there. If you get emails from me, I sent you with a link to go look at it as well. So I hope you enjoy the report. It's about 10, 12 minutes long, and I think it's really got a lot of detail. All right, so let's go back to the chart action that we were just, that we were just looking at, and I'll come back over here. Is that the chart? I'm hitting the wrong one, and here we go. There we are. All right. So in XLI, you're down to the Bollinger Band. You're oversold. You have a market that's got a higher high, lower low, and this is the first time it's staying under the 18-day average. And since when? The beginning of the year. There's a change in this market. You may not agree. I do. This market hasn't been able to do that for 3.5 months. Suddenly it's having no problem. In Freeport, McMoran, okay, nothing goes up forever. Am I bullish copper? Extremely so. I was reading today how the copper miners were counting on mergers and acquisitions, and the big boys are saying, no, it's cheaper to dig our own mines. We don't need to buy you. That's a bit of a problem for some of them, cost-wise certainly, and you have to look what's going on here. And of course, it takes a lot of energy, and if you're watching what's going on in South America and certain countries, pay attention. They've been laden with drought. Some of the countries are in emergency measures. We already know that we see Peru, we see Chile. There's always an event with power. Watch it. In RSPD, you're down to the 100-day average and the Bollinger Band. You did it yesterday, sort of stalled there. If you embed the reading and you get a rally off of this, you're going to get more selling. There's nothing bullish on this chart other than it's oversold. And in the housing, did anybody see today the housing starts? Down 14%. The permits down sharply, double what the market was looking for. No, this isn't good, but weather was a nightmare back in March in different parts of the country. If you see the rebound in the April numbers, that gives you an idea it was a one-off. If you don't see the rebound, then there's a bigger story at work. And what would it be? High mortgages. What else would it be? The expense of the house. And if we don't build more, what happens? The existing homes don't lose value. You don't have more supply at that point. In XLE, higher high, lower low, momentum down. Are we opening the door to get a correction down to 91.54, or does it start playing at the 18-day average? Market hasn't answered that question yet. The gold is the strongest of the markets. If it loses the embedded reading, you could get a correction in it. But the market just keeps looking at one thing, the word inflation. It looks at the second thing, which I don't think it's running on at this moment, which is the Mideast unrest. I think it looks at it, but I think the inflation story, just hearing Fed Chair Powell today talk, I watched what gold was doing. It took off as he was talking. So obviously the market's paying attention. Silver is losing to the gold market, as is the copper market right now. You can see that right here. So both are losing to it. And when we look at TLT, well, this, BND, these markets are all still dropping. EFA, all these still coming down. Embedded readings, they are just locked into bear trends. Yes, you'll get corrections, but I think they're going to be sold. Finally, in the dollar, maybe a little bit stretched out now. You've got 3-4 days over the upper band. You rarely go beyond 5, but you're going to try to embed the reading by holding on, and that's another bullish sign in the market. And when you look at the euro, just falling apart right here is the market doesn't have a big story for the market to rally other than it's oversold. So you put it together, you try to come up with a game plan, and that's what you and I work with together. So if you'd like to see my Eurocurrency report, which will affect FXC and UUP, just move your cursor up here. If you watch that, it'll take you there. Otherwise, IraEpstein.com under the word research. When you hit that, you'll see the drop-down menu and the reports right there. It's only up for 3 business days. You have a good day.